You are listening to Shameless Stories, and I'm Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press, soul-led publishing company for magical women writing world-changing books. And we are delighted to be the sponsor of this podcast. So enjoy, magical one.
So, welcome to another episode of Shameless Stories, the podcast that talks about stories and brings that shame into the limelight so we no longer feel it. I'm actually joined today by the magical Edie Weinstein, who has joined me.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that you have joined me today. We were trying to figure out how we met. We can't quite figure it out, but Edie is a magical master of so many things. There's a social worker, an interfaith minister, the author of the Bliss Mistress guide, and I'll let you introduce yourself. You're so much better at it than I am. Tell me more, tell the listeners what it is that you do and how we ended up chatting.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. And it's lovely to be, I'm here from Pennsylvania and you're all the way across the pond. So the marvels of modern technology brought us together. I think it might have been Facebook, but I'm not sure. And I am a licensed social worker, a psychotherapist. I am an interfaith minister. I was ordained through the new seminary in New York City. And the focus of the seminary is never instead of, always in addition to, the idea of bringing different faith traditions together. Is this going to be just audio or visual too?
Visual too. Yeah,
we're going. Okay, so behind me, okay, what you see above me are Tibetan prayer flags. You see the chakras over here. Over there is a dancing Shiva, like around the corner.
Wow.
I have a mezuzah on my front door. I was raised Jewish. I have kind of like a stylized cross with doves on it in the front next window with an angel next to it. I have butterflies on this wall over here with stickers. Like when I grew up, I don't know whether you have in color forms where you put little stickers on a little board, but here it's on my wall and it's the First Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. What else? A picture that my aunt painted of a woman lighting the Shabbos candles on Friday night. So my home is an interfaith wonderland, I guess. I don't know.
Love
and when
it.
friends come in for the first one, friends who know me, who have come to my house a number of times, they're always looking to see what else new is there. Oh, I've got a Buddha on the wall in the kitchen. And when people come in for the first time, it's like a museum. They look around like, ooh, what's here? What's here? So that's kind of how my life is a conglomeration of so many different things. And because of that, I'm never bored. I say that I'm frequently fascinated. I'm a lifelong learner, and I learn from everything, everybody, every day.
Wow. What a great life you must have, what you have had or are having.
I do. Yeah, I do have an amazing life. I have wonderful friends and family. I have my two favorite people on the planet, my grandson who's 5, my granddaughter who's almost 3, and they keep me on my toes. Very high energy little beings.
So, I mean, your life sounds exactly as you want it. And that's what's fascinating about this whole podcast is it's living shamelessly. It's not, living in shame. And it's, you are a case in point in the fact that you have seen it. I see you and I raise you and I'm going to be so much better. So we talked very briefly, touched upon kind of what shame meant to you and kind of what the stories are around shame for you. To now lead you to where you're sitting today in this beautiful eclectic mix of interfaith gorgeousness.
Thank you. So shame, that we talked about before, for me, it's the idea of sort of painting someone with a broad brush of you're bad. And traditional religion tends to do that, which is one of the things that I love about being an interfaith minister. It's not about thou shalt not. It's not about the judgments. It's not about making people inherently sinful. The definition of sin in Hebrew, the word chet, C-H-E-T, means to miss the mark, like in archery. It's not hellfire and brimstone, you're going to burn in it, you're going to, you're a terrible, awful person born with original sin. Shame to me means pushing down our true humanity. I can be ashamed of something I've done, like, oh, I can have remorse and wish I had done it differently. And boy, there are plenty of things that I wish I had done differently in my life. And I was telling you a story about how when I was a kid, I remember my mother saying, don't ever do anything we'd be ashamed of. And I lived my life as if that was my truth. It wasn't until she was on hospice in 2010, and we were talking about life, the universe, and everything in the last 6 months of her life. And I brought that up. She says, oh, no, we never said don't ever do anything we'd be ashamed of. We said don't ever do anything you would be ashamed of. So my entire life, I lived as if I didn't want to bring shame to the family. And we all have hopefully a sense of conscience that says, better not do that. I'm of the firm belief that everything I do affects the world. Everything you do affects the world. The butterfly effect, the ripple effect, whatever you want to call it. And so I do as much as I can, and this is not virtue signaling. This is me being a conscious, aware human being, is the thing that I'm about to do, is that going to cause harm intentionally to anybody? And that to me is how I would define not having, not putting shame on myself, is if I intentionally harm another person, physically, verbally, emotionally, financially, then I'm not in integrity with my own values. So that's how I try to live every day.
That's just amazing. Like with the listeners, the fact that having that philosophy and having that kind of rule to live by is, I've studied Reiki, and I've listened to the let them theory, for which way you skin that one, excuse me. But it effectively is about, like, I guess that's the one thing that I really felt called to with this work, is the fact that we don't want to come from that place of hurting somebody else. And you can hurt somebody else physically, you can hurt someone with words. And I think that, wouldn't the world be such a nice place if everybody lived from that space?
Yeah, I see it in my work every day. I'm a therapist in a practice right now, where I work with some people who have some very deep wounds that were inflicted by other people. And part of our work together is helping them to recognize the wounds, helping them to recognize the multi-generational aspect of it. And, while we're healing the wounds, reminding them that one of the best ways to heal it is don't do what was done to you. Let's break the cycle. Let's break the cycle of shame, because so many of them grew up with being considered shameful because they weren't, and they're according to their caregivers, they weren't smart enough or pretty enough or strong enough or manly enough, or what else? Successful enough. I've worked with people in the LGBTQ community. They've gotten shamed for being who they are. So part of my work as a therapist is helping people to help people embrace who they are and not feel shame for who they are. They can feel regret or remorse for things that they've done, but not shame for who they are as human beings.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And working in the space that you do as a social worker, I can't imagine the types of stories that you're being faced with every day.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I say that my mind is a repository for stories, and of course, because of confidentiality, they got to stay in here. I can share generic stories, but I never, I tell my clients, you can tell the whole world I'm your therapist, but I'll never tell anybody you're my client.
On that kind of, to that vein, like, what sorts of things are you seeing around, like, what sort of wounding are you seeing regularly? There must be I feel like there'll be a theme around the things.
Well, for the people that have experienced trauma, it's been physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, Some of my clients have found loved ones who have died, some by suicide. Some of my clients have lost family members in other traumatic ways. Some have had different illnesses themselves or injuries. So that, that's part of the trauma. Some of my clients over the years, and I've worked in a number of different settings. I've worked in psychiatric hospitals, medical hospitals, nursing home, home care, drug and alcohol. A lot of them have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. A number of my clients have, I don't want to call it, well, kind of run-of-the-mill anxiety over life stuff. And I look at anxiety as twofold. It's what's out there in the future that I have no clue what's coming 5 minutes from now, an hour from now, a year from now. And the second part is what I can't control, which is mostly nothing. I mostly can't control anything outside of here, right?
Yeah.
So I deal with clients that have depression, anxiety, people who, as I mentioned, part of the LGBTQ community, who are recognizing who they are and what they want their place to be in the world. I work with people who have substance abuse and other addictions. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing. Plus, here in the United States, and I don't know if your listeners are all over the world, you know what we're dealing with. You know what we're facing every day. So since the election, anxiety and depression have ramped up dramatically. So part of my job is to help people integrate what we're dealing with now into their daily lives. After the day after the election, I realized I had to compartmentalize. I still, in the midst of my shock and grief and everything going on, I worked for Kamala Harris's campaign, and I was, devastated is too strong a word, but pretty close to devastated when, the current occupant of the Oval Office was elected. That I said I have to compartmentalize. I still have to go to work every day, take care of my clients, still have to take care of my grandkids, still have to pay my bills and, be an upstanding citizen, that kind of thing. So a lot of my clients are in the same position that I'm in. So I need to hold it together to help them hold it together.
Sure. And I guess nothing is forever.
I hope so. I like to think that, this too shall pass. I'm 66 years old, and in my lifetime, there's been the civil rights movement, the Cold War, the Vietnam War, the assassinations of JFK, RFK, MLK, and Malcolm X. Terrible things have happened in my lifetime. And before that, World War II and the Holocaust. And, all the racism that people of color have had to face. And in this country, what Native Americans have had to face. So we've always been a country where bad things happen to people. And what I say is that it shouldn't have to happen to me for it to matter to me. And I think that's part of the division in our country, is that there are people who would say, oh, no, it's not going to affect me, so yeah, I can let it go. Eventually, it's going to affect everybody. What every one of us does affects ultimately the whole.
So. which is so important to the kind of the tending your own garden situation.
Absolutely.
To your own, I call it like putting on your oxygen mask first, but ultimately, looking after yourself, being staying in integrity, and then being able to then support others through their own. So I imagine, you're having to dig very deep.
I've been sleeping more. I've been taking naps. I'm blessed that I can make my own schedule with my job. In addition to seeing clients, I write articles for different publications, and I make my own schedule, except for when I'm there with my grandkids. So if I have an hour or two with nothing I have to get done, I take a nap. Because sleep is restorative. I take it from a recovering workaholic, who literally worked herself into a heart attack in 2014. That sleep is not highly overrated like I thought it was.
Again, I guess there would have been an element of shame to that, in that.
Yeah, well, actually, what happened, it's funny you mentioned that, because the little backstory, I am literally a workaholic, that I am addicted to work. It's not just, oh, I work hard, I have, good work ethic. I would work myself into exhaustion. And I would sleep maybe 5 or 6 hours a night, work 12 to 14-hour days. This is when I was working at a drug and alcohol outpatient program. So here I was, literally addicted to work. On the way home from the gym was June 12th of 2014, at 55 years old, I had a heart attack. And I use this as a teaching tool for women because our symptoms are very different from men's. Women's heart attack symptoms start with jaw pain and tightness, like you can't move your jaw,
Right.
searing heartburn pain front and back, torrential sweats, palpitations, nausea, all that. So this was happening as I was driving. I drove home, didn't go directly to the hospital. I could have. I called my office and said, I'm not feeling very well. Can you cancel my clients? And then I got back in the car and drove to the hospital. That's how much of a workaholic I was. And that was so dangerous. I don't, I advise people never, ever, ever drive yourself to the hospital in the midst of a heart attack. So less than an hour later, I had a stent inserted in my heart. It was a fully occluded LAD, the widowmaker heart attack. And the irony was I was already a widow. My husband died in 1998. So part of it was genetics. My mother died of congestive heart failure. My dad had some kind of cardiac condition as well. I was working too hard. My blood pressure was through the roof. My cholesterol was through the roof. I wasn't taking good care of myself. I wasn't walking the talk. So one of my first thoughts when the doctor, when I was back in the hospital bed, I said, oh my God, what did you do to yourself? And I did feel tremendous shame. Here I am, a therapist, a caregiver, relatively intelligent person. And I thought, you should know better. How did you let this happen? And that's when I realized I needed to do a complete reevaluation of who I thought I had to be in order to earn my place in the world. Yeah.
Wow, that is some story because, at the end of the day, well, the American dream, right? I mean, I had colleagues in the States and I've never known a work ethic like it. It's, the British are quite ruthless as well, I think, but I know that it is quite ferocious, and you, because of the way that business is run, you're not given notice. You are, almost in fear the whole time. So I'm not surprised.
Well, for me, the fear wasn't losing jobs because a lot of I have a lot of overlapping jobs. My resume is 3 pages long. I've had all different kinds of jobs throughout my adulthood and probably have rarely worked one job at a time. So it wasn't a fear of that. A lot of my work has been as a consultant. So if I don't work, I don't get paid. And that's what was actually going on during the time of the heart attack. Was I was working as a consultant for the drug. I wasn't full-time salary benefits job. And I thought, oh my God, how can I take time off of work? And I said, you had a friggin' heart attack. You need to take time off of work. And 2 of my dear friends, one who has since passed, came in and they said, husband and wife, and she said, I demand to speak with your social worker. That person needs to know what your lifestyle is like. You are not going back to work this week. You need to take at least 2 weeks off. And her husband, Phil, who was from New York, I don't remember which borough, but leaned over me in his New York accent, said, you go back to work next week, I come over and break both your legs. And I took 2 weeks off. I was lying on the couch watching the ceiling. I don't know if you can see the ceiling fan up there, watching the ceiling fan spin, bored out of my mind. My first trip out was to Costco. Do they have them in the UK?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay. So I went to Costco with a dear friend who was a nurse. I called her my private duty nurse. And I was holding onto the cart like it was a walker. And I was taking one step at a time. And it was one breath at a time.
Yeah.
And if that was an ordeal for somebody that was running around 100 miles an hour with her hair on fire to only take one step at a time.
Yeah.
And then I said, I was being too hard on myself, even in cardiac rehab, because the staff there kept saying, slow down, you don't have to push so hard. And while I was in cardiac rehab, I saw a bumper sticker in the parking lot of the hospital saying, "It's not sweat, it's liquid awesome."
Yeah.
And the joke was that the staff there kept telling us, "Oh, you're doing awesome. That's awesome." And I thought I had to produce a certain amount of liquid awesome for me to be doing it right. And they said, do you want to go back to the hospital? You take your time. We're here to monitor how hard you're pushing.
Yeah.
So all these years later, we're talking about 11 years later, coming up in June, um, I still have to remind myself to slow down.
Mm.
And if I don't remind myself, my family and friends do.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's funny because everyone I've recorded with today has had a message for me. It's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Hmm.
Nothing is
Hmm.
worth that. So,
Yeah. But the good thing that came out of the heart attack, I mentioned to you that I'm the founder of Hug Mobsters Armed with Love. Backstory. Valentine's Day weekend of 2014, a few months before the heart attack, I brought a group of friends to 30th Street Station, which is a big train station in Philadelphia.
yeah.
And we were doing a free hugs flash mob. So there were a dozen of us, and at noon we unleashed ourselves on the station and we walked around with our signs, free hug signs, asking people if they wanted a hug. If they said yes, we'd hug them. If they said no, we'd say thank you, hug somebody, even yourself. And in an hour's time, we estimated that we hugged about 200 people. Now, one
Wow.
of those people was an Iraq War vet, and I've told this story a million times. I could probably tell it in my sleep.
Yeah.
He approached us and said he was the only survivor of his platoon, and he had survivor's guilt. And he said, "I thought about ending my life until just now when I met you people. You give me hope. Can I join you?" So of course we were all crying. We gave him his own sign, and he just went off hugging people. Now, all these years later, I have no clue whether he survived. I don't know what he did with his life, but my prayer is that he's living a full, healthy, happy life, maybe doing his own free hugs thing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to be a one-off event. And then a few months later, in June of that year, I had the heart attack. And during cardiac rehab, I walked around my little town of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and I thought, why don't I combine the hugging with the walking? So I did. And I'm kind of a fixture in Doylestown. People say, "Oh, you're the hug lady. Can I have a hug? I saw you here." And I usually start by standing at the intersection of State and Main Streets in Doylestown. There's a Starbucks right there, so it's people know where that is. And then I take it all throughout the town. Sometimes people join me, sometimes I do it by myself. Friends started calling us hug mobsters, hug mob, flash mob, and I added the tagline "Armed with Love" because when I think of mobsters, guns, drugs, violence, and I said I don't want to be associated with that mindset,
Yeah.
so I added "Armed with Love."
I love.
Since then, I've hugged thousands of people all over the United States and Canada. And in May of 2018, I hugged my way through Ireland. So it was just a phenomenal experience. And this coming weekend, is it the 1st of May, I think, I think it's Global Free Hugs Day.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm going to be in
Okay.
Doylestown doing my free hugs thing. And
Oh,
then the day after that is World Laughter Yoga Day. I'm also look up laughteryoga.org. I'm also a laughter yoga leader. And at this event, every year I lead a peace meditation at the very end.
wow.
Um, so if I have a ministry at all, this is it. It's connection and healthy, nurturing touch by consent.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's fun.
Oh, what a fab story.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
amazing. I wonder if they'll ever, whether you'll ever find him.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's from Philadelphia. I have no idea. But I hope so. Now, the
So,
thing is, I didn't create the free hugs movement. It was created by someone in, I think, Australia, called himself Juan Man, Juanmann, which is actually a pseudonym for like one man. I
yeah.
don't know what his actual name is. And he had just moved there and was very lonely. And he decided to go to the center square in town with his like real simple black and white, stark black and white free hug sign, held up the sign, 20 minutes went by before anybody came up to him. And it was this older woman who I think whose dog had, I don't know, dog had just died or something happened, and she was very sad.
Oh,
And maybe it was, oh, maybe, no, wait, maybe his dog died and she lost a family member, something like that, a human family member. And she reached up to him, he reached down to her, and a movement was born. People started coming up to him and hugging him. So I'm assuming he's still doing it. I haven't met him, but I've interviewed him. Then there's another person who started free mom hugs. Have you ever heard of that?
no, I haven't. That sounds
Okay.
amazing.
Sarah Cunningham, Sara Cunningham, Oklahoma City. Sarah was a devout Christian whose son came out to her as a gay man, and she was devastated. She thought, how can I choose between God and my son? And she realized after kind of a dark night of the soul that she didn't have to.
Yeah.
So one day he invited her to go to a pride event in Oklahoma City, and she made a little pin that said free mom hugs, with the idea that a lot of people's moms don't hug them when they come out. So she went to the event, hugged lots of people, and thought, I'm going to do something with this. So she left her church, became an ordained minister herself, and officiates at same-sex weddings. She's also, excuse me, a stand-in mom at same-sex weddings, where she says, if your mom won't be there, I will, and I'll bring the bubbles. So Jamie Lee Curtis, who she looks a lot like, the two of them are creating a movie about her.
Wow.
And I do free mom hugs too. So there are a lot of pride events in our area, so I go there and do free mom
Oh, I
hugs.
love that. That's
Mhm.
so cool. Oh, that's just so lovely. That's where, like, just
Mhm.
what you're doing is just so
Thank you.
powerful.
Thank you. And then I decided to take it even further. I did a TEDx talk in 2022, I think. Yeah, 2022 in Ohio, called Overcoming the Taboo of Touch, if people want to look it up. And it's about what I just talked about, but also about the human necessity for touch. We are
Right.
hardwired for touch. Our skin is our single biggest organ. And
Yeah.
without nurturing touch, there are studies that say babies fail to thrive, so do adults. Loneliness is an epidemic.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are isolated. The pandemic had something to do with it, but even before that, if people live alone, if people don't have community, if they're older, if they're ill, if they've got serious mental illness, if they don't have the ability or the ability to get out there in the world, people shrivel up and die.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
nurturing platonic touch by consent, I think, is necessary.
Yeah. Well, connection's not just about talking, is it?
Yep. Absolutely.
It's all of our senses.
Mm-hmm.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
I encourage people, if you live alone, hug yourself, hug trees. If you have people in your life that are willing to hug you and you're willing to hug, doesn't have to be sexual, because in our culture, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in our culture, we're taught that touch is, for a lot of people, non-existent, coercive, abusive, sexual, or what was the other one? I don't remember what the other one was, but it doesn't have to be any of those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's just, oh wow.
Mhm.
Well, I did not expect this today.
Hopefully it's a pleasant surprise.
Oh, we could talk to you all night, but I'm sure you have time. You need to be
No, that's fine. I've got time. We're doing well.
having your nap.
I did an interview last week, 2 weeks ago, on somebody's podcast that was supposed to be 45 minutes and ended up being an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, it was fun. I love this. I love doing this. I used to have a podcast myself called It's All About Relationships. That was how many years ago? Like 12, 13 years ago, something like that. And it became a full-time job that I wasn't getting paid for. It was fun, but I didn't have the time to do it after a while.
Yeah.
But it's a joy to speak to people, because what I call this is having a private conversation that the whole world gets to listen in on.
Exactly. And I think that's what I love about doing this, is just it's
Mhm.
like it's just so much there's just so much to
Mhm.
unpack, and thank you for sharing.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
One thing I just want to say is, like, where can people find you, and
Okay.
can I have you back on in a few months?
Yeah, different topic, whatever you want to talk. I mean, my mother used to say that I started talking at 6 months and I've never stopped. So I'm happy to talk about anything you want.
Amazing.
So my website is, I'll say it, then I'll spell it, opti-mystical.com. www.opti-mystical, mystical.com. Where that came from was either a meditation or a dream where I heard, you're not just an optimist, you're an opti-mystic who sees the world through the eyes of possibility.
Yeah.
I created that, I don't know if you call it's not really a poem, but that statement. And somebody from Facebook that I've never met, but Facebook friend, created a meme.
Yeah.
And it went on what I call a worldwide whirlwind tour. And on my birthday, how many years ago? 10 years ago, Julian Lennon put it on his Facebook page. I went, you know, I was honored. And since then, other people have taken those words and crediting me, created all different kinds of designs with that. So I encourage people to be an optimistic because in the midst of the darkest and scariest times, we need to see things through the eyes of possibility. A friend, real quickly, had posted something on her Facebook page about her fears and, with what's going on in the world. And she said, instead of just focusing on what we're afraid of and what we don't want, let's all together visualize the day when we feel free of this, when everybody is living together peacefully, when whatever whatever constrictions that are happening in this country and in the entire world, it's not just here, when we're all dancing in the streets. And she said, don't worry about the how, because that's what snags us. I have no clue how things are going to get better. I just know that they have to.
Yeah.
And that's part of, I pray all throughout the day. And that's one of my prayers is help me be someone who helps bring to bring that about that day when we're all dancing in the streets.
Yeah.
So that's my website. Again, the TED Talk is Overcoming the Taboo of Touch. Those are the two, and I'm on Facebook. I'm, under my name, Edie Weinstein.
Yeah.
And um, always looking for places to write. And in fact, I'm working on the article now on creativity.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was working on that this morning.
Great.
So yeah, places to write, places to speak. So I thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. It's been absolutely
Mm.
amazing listening to your story. And
Mm.
like with most guests, I
Mm.
want to stay.
Thank
But we
you.
need to wrap it up,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well, I offer you a hug, a virtual hug.
Oh,
Ready?
let's all hug
So,
everyone.
and this is to you and to anybody else who would like a virtual hug as you're watching this.
Thank you. I receive.
My pleasure. All right, you take care.
And thank you again for coming on the podcast. And I'll share all the links in the show notes. And I'll be in touch for another one. Thank you again. And I will see you soon.